She told me, some days I avoid going outside so I don't get to see how the camp looks like. I hate it, and I hate seeing it. Even if I had a palace here, I still wouldn't like the camp. So imagine living on the university campus within that yellow boundary and being restricted to shopping only at the campus markets. Whenever you want to go downtown, you have to wait in line for hours to get a permission from the university police, and that permit is valid for only a week or two. This was the reality I witnessed at the Zaatari camp for Syrian refugees in Jordan, which is home to 82,000 refugees, nearly double the population of Penn State's University Park campus, which has around 49,000 students. In the camp, while I was having a conversation with one lady, her daughter came home celebrating getting a permit for her father to visit, who lives outside the camp, knowing that she has to go through the same bureaucratic process if she wants to leave herself. This is how millions of refugees live every day. As of mid-2023, over 110 million people worldwide are displaced, including 36.4 million refugees. While some live integrated into urban environments, about 4.5 million live in planned and managed camps. These camps are not just shelters. They are complex spaces where survival, resilience, and human dignity collide. Now, let me tell you why I care so deeply about this issue. My name is Dima Abu-Aridah. I am an architect, urban planner, and a researcher from Jordan, originally from Palestine. So growing up in Jordan, I was immersed in the stories of displacement shared by my parents, grandparents, and even my relatives. Stories of loss, constraints, resilience, and longing. These stories, along with my practice of architecture and urban planning, shape my awareness, commitment, and curiosity to understanding and advocating for refugees. Through storytelling and research, I aim to amplify their voices and challenge the barriers that confine them. In the Zaatari camp, freedom of movement is a distant memory for many refugees, replaced by confinement. Their stories reflect the daily toll of these restrictions, both physical and emotional. One father shared the struggle of getting a permit to visit his relative who also lives outside the camp, saying, "It's not just about paperwork, it's about waiting, pleading, and hoping they will approve it. And even then, the permit only lasts a few days. It feels like we are prisoners." Sometimes, even everyday tasks can become a challenge. A mother shared her frustration with me about the communal kitchen when she first arrived in the camp, saying, "We had to wait in line for hours just to cook something." It became unbearable. She eventually bought a small stove to cook in their small cramped tent, which is a dangerous situation to have that source of fire in a shelter made out of fabric. So imagine how even basic tasks require that much adaptation and compromise. These restrictions seep also into the social and psychological fabric of life in camps. One elderly woman shared with me about her life back in Syria. In Syria, we were always visiting family, having gatherings, celebrating together. Here, it's different. It is isolating. For many, this isolation is not just a loss of connection, but something much deeper, something for us all to reflect on. These struggles extend beyond daily life, touching deeply on identity, community, and the resilience needed to endure displacement. The title, Refugee, even for those who have managed to find a semblance of resilience within the camp, remains a sore point. One lady told me that she could not tolerate the idea of having a World Refugee Day. She went into tears when she mentioned that. When asked what was wrong, she replied, "Hearing the word refugee moves me into tears. It's not just a label. It's a reminder of everything we have lost." That was a very emotional moment for me. Her tears were not just about grief. They carried the weight of identity, which is something I can relate to myself as a second-generation refugee who inherited the title from my parents, and I would also pass it on to my children if I ever have any. While roaming the camp, I have seen many children playing, riding their parents' oversized bikes, and shopping for their families. There is an impact of displacement on younger generations. One mother said to me, "There is a generation here that came to the camp at a young age or even born in the camp. They have grown up here. And if they would return to Syria, they wouldn't know how to live there. The camp is their home now." I personally cannot imagine the soreness of this generation born away from home in a place that has shaped their identities in ways that they may neither like nor fully accept. And among the stories that stayed with me is that of a family from Damascus in Syria. They arrived in the Zaatari camp in 2014, living in a bare tent, before receiving a caravan, which is a prefabricated unit. Despite leaking roofs and harsh winters, they transformed their space, like many other households in the camp, with creativity and determination. The mother, who was a retired civil servant, found hope in participating in workshops and cultivating a small garden within her shelter, while the son supported the family through multiple jobs and initiatives. So, what would you do if you were in their place? In such harsh circumstances, how would you adapt? So, through my research on public engagements, I have sought to educate others about these realities. I see my role to amplify voices and provide a window into a world that many never see. So my research specifically focuses on understanding how refugees adapt socially and spatially within camps like the Zaatari camp in Jordan. So in 2022, after 6 months of navigating extensive paperwork, I packed my belongings and traveled back home to be in the Zaatari camp, speaking with refugees and observing the way they live. I spent the first day there in the police office trying to get my access permit processed and approved, which is similar to the permit that refugees require when they want to leave. But luckily, my permit was valid for a month. So in the camp, I documented how refugees creatively reconfigured their living spaces to balance the demands of temporary shelters with their cultural and social needs. The process, which I personally term spatial reproduction, highlights how refugees are not merely passive recipients of aid, but also active agents, shaping their environments to reflect memories of their lost home and their aspirations for the future. And to analyze these transformations, I employed shaped grammar formalisms, which is a technical tool typically used in architecture to study and generate spatial configurations. This approach allowed me to decode how refugees modify and adapt their shelters over time, incorporating donated and reclaimed materials into meaningful and functional living spaces. The findings of my research emphasized the need to design refugee settlements that integrate social and cultural values and foster autonomy rather than treating camps as static and temporary solutions. By bridging humanitarian architecture with sustainable practices, I aim to contribute to a future where the dignity and agency of refugees are at the heart of camp design and policies. My journey and background have led me to collaborate with one of the world's leading refugee agencies, and I look forward to sharing the outcomes of my research. I also have published research in this field, and I'm actively working on further publications. My goal is to continue contributing to this vital topic and establish myself as a recognized published voice in the field of humanitarian and sustainable design. So, refugees are not just numbers. They are individuals with hopes, dreams, and struggles. Their lives are shaped by barriers that most of us cannot imagine. But they are also marked by resilience and the universal desire for dignity. As an architect and a researcher, I aim to connect the built environment with the lived realities of displaced communities. Through storytelling and advocacy, we can challenge the systematic barriers that confine them and push for a world where freedom of movement is a right, not a privilege. And now I will leave you with this. What would you do if your life was confined to a 1 square mile? How would you redefine freedom? Together, let's reimagine a world where no one's potential is bound by borders. Thank you.